Gabi, and welcome to week 8 of our Weave and Stitch Along. My name is Gabi, and yes, today is our very last session for our Weave and Stitch Along. And you can see, if you look at the picture, it's rather crowded, and that is because there is so much to do in so little time, as they say. And also, we already have done a lot. You will also see here to the left that I put out um, the table topper that I made as a child again, because I would like to tie back to that. We are at a point with our weave and stitch along where we are done with all the embroidery, and you can see the 2 stacks of embroideries that we have done here. We'll take a look at that later. And so now it comes to putting things together. Um, and this is very similar to what happened here. Uh, I did all the little embroideries in 1967, but then we had to, that's not it. We cannot finish. We cannot stop there. We have to finish our project. And a lot of people, if you feel like that, you're not alone. A lot of people have a block when it comes to finishing a project, whether it's a knitting project or crocheting, or in our case, weaving and embroidery or sewing, doesn't matter. So I hope that this session will help to get over that block and actually turn our embroidery motifs into a project. And you can see it under here. I'm just lifting this up quickly. This is what we have, what I want to propose to make. It's a sampler table topper, and this is the version for the hexagons, and this is the version for the squares. I have mentioned it several times over the weeks. Don't worry if you think this is too big. We will talk about a smaller solution as well. Today we want to look at the process to get the project. So you will not see the completed. You see here there are a whole bunch of squares, and here a whole bunch of hexagons, and here are motifs. I will not be able to sew them all together in 1 hour. There's just no way. But I want to give you, I want to show you a process to complete the project, and I want to give you tools to finish your project. We will also briefly talk about, I've named this session "Now What?" So this is, on the one hand, what are we going to do with our embroidery and how do we turn it into a project? But also, since this is the last session, what are we going to do beyond the weave and stitch along? Also, and this is a little bit of a teaser, towards the end of the session, we will have a giveaway, but more about that in a little while. Let's first take a look at our show and tell. Our show and tell, let me just put this aside so that we have a little bit more of a flatter space here. We have 2 things for the show and tell. Can we please zoom in? Thank you. Since we are recording the weekly sessions on Wednesdays, there are only 2 days where we actually have feedback from the previous session. And also last week we did our second mystery with the smiley face, and so, but I didn't have the feedback in time to show you. So I want to show you right now. I want to start here with the silly motif, as I had named it, the silly design. And this is from Cindy. You know Cindy from our charity project. And Cindy turned her little silly motif into a pocket pal. So she made 2 hexagons, put them together, and then sewed all around it, stuffed them slightly, and she actually used old threads. So whatever you have in stuffing available is perfect for that, and she will donate that to the Stitches of Love, and because she said the children, they love emojis. So the other thing that I want to point out, I named the design Silly because it's an upside down um, smiley face. And if you Google for a goofy emoji, you will see that. But I will admit, I did confuse you. So there are two little hearts here and here, and then there's the flower. In the original design, Cindy added an extra heart here. But one reason why it was silly is a lot of people couldn't decide if this is the right side or this is the right side. If you have it like this, the hearts are upside down, and the flower looks like a hat, but the smiley face looks like this, so more familiar smiley face. And if you have the flower properly positioned, then the smiley face is on the side. So um, just wanted to tease people a little bit. Cindy posted her picture like this. A lot of people posted it the other way around. Whatever you do is fine, and I hope you all had fun. I definitely had a lot of fun looking at your creations. Here is one from Carolyn. Carolyn turned her smiley face into a coaster and crocheted a beautiful yellow emoji yellow border around it, which I liked a lot. And I think she doubled it, I'm not sure, but it does not look happy and doesn't make you smile right away. So I definitely like that one a lot. There were a lot of really cute things. I excuse me. I did get a kick out of this one from Carol. She made twins, and if you look at the details, she actually copied or flipped the design completely. So the flower is here, and it actually looks more like a hat here, and here is the flower or hat on the left side. The blue hearts are here, and the purple hearts are here. So she made twins and flipped the design, which is pretty cool that you guys are all starting to explore a little bit. I very much enjoy seeing that. But let's also take a look at our week 7, and I think the owl is just a total hit here. I have seen already so many beautiful creations. This one here is from Susan, and Susan did not make one owl, she made 3. And also, you probably see it, it's not just the illusion here. This one is bigger, and she called it, so this is a mom with her 2 baby owls right here, a boy and a girl. She says she has a tree that she decorates year round, and she has it decorated with birds, and so our little owls fit perfectly into it. So number one, I think this is beautiful photography. Amazing little owls, and 3 of them in different sizes, so there was a lot to it. And then next came Bonnie, and Bonnie made this little owl in naturals, and she also explored with some yarns again. But then she also started and used a tiny turtle to make a tiny little guy. And so people started to be very creative. There was, I think it was Carolyn who said, it's like, oh, you could do keychains and you could do a mobile and this and that. So there were a lot of really cool ideas coming up. And I definitely at this point want to very much thank Amber one more time for inspiring us with that idea and making her idea available to us. So, oh yeah, here, last not least, is No Week Without Hazel, remember? So this is an owl that Hazel provided, and she actually, you can see, I'm not sure if you can see it here, but she did what Amber had suggested, or one of Amber's suggestions was to weave a pattern here in the first half of the square. Um, and so Hazel picked up on that for her owl, but she went even a step further. She started to tell stories, and I would like to quickly read the story that she writes about her owl. I quote: "So here's my owl. I thought about doing Hedwig, but thought white on white might a little bit tricky to photograph. So I went with her cousin, Smokey. Hedwig, as all Harry Potter fans know, is a serious and respectable bird and does not suffer fools gladly, especially relatives, so tries to avoid this cousin as much as possible. Smokey is well named, as his reputation is a bit on the smoky side. And though no one has had the courage to approach the subject, the family has often wondered about his mother's longtime friendship with Brewster Buzzard. But for better or worse, here is Smokey. And thank you very much. So this is like my first idea on Hazel's story was like, don't stop there, tell us more. This is like so cool. And several other people actually picked up on that idea and started naming um, naming their little owls. Oh yeah, here for example, back to Bonnie. This is Lucy and Ben. So meet Lucy and Ben. But I definitely enjoyed Hazel's story about Smokey, and it actually carried on into a few other owls that appeared after that. Like I think we had a Brighty. So it's so much fun. These little owls actually turned into conversation pieces. So I suggest keep that pattern um, somewhere where you can find it, and when you need something little and quick and funny and cuddly, make an owl. All right. So this much about our show and tell for this week. But now let's get started with our deliverables for this week. Can we please zoom out? Thank you. Right, let me clean this up here a little bit. I will take this out at this point. All right, and then we have this here. Take this out and this out. All right, how do we get from here to a table topper? And I have broken it down for you into steps. I'm not sure. Yeah, well, this is not very visible, but I will read it to you, and this chart will also be, or this checklist will also be in your worksheet this week. So how do we get from here to something like this or this? Okay, and I call it the 5-step process to product. And I will quickly read it to you, and then we'll go through the individual steps. So first, see what you have, and then decide what you want to do with it. Okay? Determine what else you need, and then make it. Put it all together, and then lastly, take pictures, share, and enjoy. All right, so 5 steps, process to product. Let's take a look. The first step is see what you have. And I just want to quickly go through this. These are the stacks of motifs that we have made so far. We had 7 weeks, so each week has at least 1 hexagon or square. But we also had a few optional activities. So I just want to quickly go through this in a review, and let's take, this is already memory lane, but let's go quickly through this and see what we have done. Week 1, the running stitch. Week 2 was trying to get our way around, and there was the first mystery with the echo. Week 3, we had the lazy daisy and the straight stitches. Week 4, we had the back stitches, and we had it in different sizes. Also, week 4 was the midterm. Week 5 was our famous buttonholes. Week 6 is the beloved cross stitch. And then we had our second mystery with the smiley face. And here is our owl from last week, week 7. And also the little bonus was the sheep that showed us the French knot. So not everybody did everything, but if you did the minimum, you should have at least 7 hexagons or squares. If you have done everything, you have about 11, or if you made these in different sizes, you will have 13 hexagons or squares. So, and what you should do at this point, and this brings us to number 2, decide what you want to do with your hexagons and your squares. For the purpose of this session, I will just work with the 7 original hexagons and squares. If you have more, I'll give you a few tips along the way, but I also say at this point that I will be available for the next 2 weeks to help you to finish your project. So if you have any questions, you can either post on Ravelry or on Facebook or contact me directly. The most important thing for me is that you actually really finish this weave and stitch along with a completed project, if you wish. All right, you don't have to, it's optional, but I highly recommend it. And this is where it comes in here, the stitch work that I did in 76. What we're doing right now is creating memories. Okay, so when I made this, I remember I was glad when I was done with it. I didn't like it. There were certain things that just didn't come out the way I liked them to. Also, I didn't like the border that my mom chose. I really wanted a white and lacy border, which we didn't have at the time. And, you know, I really didn't care that it was 1967. It could have been who knows what. But my mom finished it. She turned it into a project. And that is what makes it possible today, so many years later, to still look at it and really appreciate it and enjoy it. And I would like to give you a chance to do exactly something like that with this weave and stitch along. So don't stop here. Go through the effort, even if it seems tedious, but go through the effort in finishing your project. All right, let's take a look. So let me pick those 7 hexagons right here. This one goes out, and here we go. No midterm, and this, and the J, not this one, and this one. No sheep. Okay, we do the same here. Week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4, no midterm, buttonhole, J, no smiley face, and this one. All right, so let me just move this out of here a little bit so that I can show you. This is what I'm proposing that we make, and you can see here we have the, let me show you this one at a time. So we have here our 7 motifs right here, and what I'm suggesting is that we frame those 7 motifs to make our table topper. All right, the same here for our squares. Here are our 7 squares. Okay, And what I would like to do here is frame those squares with more squares to turn it into this table topper. Okay. You may say, you know, I don't have the time. I want to preserve my embroidery stitches, but I don't have the time to make more, but I want to preserve it right now. So here is the minimum. Let me get this out of the way. I think that will show. Yes, I think this will be better. So here is the minimum solution that I will show you today. You can go ahead and just put them, let's put the owl in the middle. Here we go. And then we just arrange the other 6 hexagons around it. You see this? And you can move them around any way you want. That's a minimal solution to preserve your weave and stitch along memories. Okay, all you need to do is join them, and we'll talk about them briefly afterwards. So just join those 7 hexagons, and then you can make a border. You don't have to. You could make a border even with, you know, with a buttonhole stitch right here. So, and at that point you would be done. Okay, let me show you the same thing for the squares. Minimum, and let me see if I can do this in a similar sequence. Minimum layout here could be something like this. There you go. Okay, do you see this? So absolute minimum. You just take the 7 squares. Just do this. Just take the 7 squares from the 7 weeks, sew them together, minimal sewing, and that would be a minimal table topper. And you can already see that this is really a sampler nature, and it's really a lot of fun to just look at those things the way they are there right now. I hope that all of you will be able to commit to something like that. Minimal work to assemble, but huge in heirloom value. All right, you will enjoy that. You can show this to your friends, to your family. You will be able to enjoy that for years. Okay. Next, you can go and, for example, several people have not made the J. They have their own initials. Swap it out. Okay. Or there's one motif that you really don't like. Swap it out. Okay. So, for example, I really want to have that sheep in there. Add the sheep, swap it out, okay? Or let me just see, what do we have here? I really enjoyed the smiley face, but I didn't enjoy the cross stitch initial. Swap it out, okay? So that said, you can stick with this 7 layout scheme, but just pick your favorites. All right, it will still be fun. All right, now let's look at the next step. If you, and I know from several people already that they have been busy weaving. If you have been weaving along, getting ready to make this type of table topper, let's take a look at how we would be doing that. For demonstration purposes, I will just leave the layout here like this, but we will move that out a little bit. And you see here, so this is what I have ready. And it looks crazy because one thing I want you to consider is that you turn your sampler into a crazy quilt table topper. So whether you choose one color or many, doesn't matter. Just for your, if you're curious what I'm using here, this is Karen cakes. I love weaving cakes, and this is the Karen cakes mixed berry. I love weaving cakes with pin looms because you know, you just start either in the center or on the outside, and for the hexagon loom you get about 7 or 8 hexagons before the color changes, so it really doesn't get boring at all. And then you stack them like that, and you can use them randomly, or you know, sort them by colors as I did here, and then use them for that. I have made the sheep baby blanket using this yarn. Could you use separate colors? Yes, absolutely, you could, of course. What I like with cakes is A, that it's fun to work them, B, those colors that they use within the cakes guaranteed work together. And I really like that. So just wanted to add that at this point, but let me clean up the mess here. The Karen cakes work very well with the hexagon looms. There are some, and I actually have seen a lot more. So the Karen cakes are worsted weight yarn, so they have it's a medium weight with 18 stitches. So this is perfect for the hexagon looms. There are a lot of cakes that also work very well on the zoom loom or on square looms. My favorite for the zoom loom would be the mandala. But I also noticed, particularly this fall, there have been a whole bunch of new cakes are coming out. They are so popular right now, that are in DK or thinner. And so a lot of choices for zoom looms as well. I suggest really give them a try, because it's just really fun um, to weave off the cake and get the different colors, and then think about what you're going to do with it. All right, let's get back to our layout here. And I buried the template, which I should not be doing. See if I can put this up here. Yeah, maybe kind of here is good enough. So just at this point, layout. Okay, so you can weave in ends. I like to use my ends for sewing them together. And since I said I'm going to make a crazy quilt, I will use as many different colors as I can. Let me see. So we have, let's do this. Start with one in the center, and then you just lay out one row of supporting ones all around it. Let's put another one. The colors really don't matter at this point. Okay, so now we have here, you can see this, there's the center, and we have done the circle all around it. And here are already the 2 supporting things on the side, and then we have one more right here. Let's choose another color, and right here. And then we fill in the gaps. Let me put this aside here. I'm doing this on the fly, and so the colors are not completely perfectly distributed at this point. Let me move this out so that we can focus on one thing only. Okay, so here we have our center surrounded by one circle of completed ones, and then we have embroidery, not embroidery, embroidery, not embroidery, and so forth, one row completely around. And then we have one last row with finishing hexagons right here. So the reason why I'm showing you how I'm laying these things out is because I want you to do exactly that. Do not start to sew them together without actually taking a look at what you're doing. Okay? So, and I'll show you in a little while why. Here's one more thought on that. You can probably see that I'm working here on a white board. I highly suggest that you work on a towel, a large towel, or a piece of felt. I really like what I call the design felts. It's a large piece of felt that holds larger projects like this. The reason is that I want to be able to, if I have to stop working on my project on short notice, I don't want to lose my work. So I just want to be able to roll up everything and then move on with whatever I need to do without losing my work. All right, so this is, it looks pretty wild at this point. Can we zoom out one or two, please? Thank you. And you can see it here. Let me just slide it up a little bit. So this is, it looks pretty wild, but this is what our design looks like. So we have them spread out here and then surrounded by supporting motifs. And this is a little bit less than a yard wide, so it makes a really nice table topper. This looks now much bigger than it will be once it's all put together, because you know there's like they are not really that close together, and there are also a whole bunch of threads still floating around. So it will look much cleaner once it's put all together. But this will give you, if you follow those steps, this will give you a pretty good idea of what you get. Now you can start putting, you know, you can exchange colors if you want. Let's see, for example, here are two, they are both blue. We don't want that, so you could pick a purple and lay it out like this and do things like that. And do this until you totally like what you see, okay? And once this is done, you just roll it up and put it away for joining. All right, next we do the same for our squares. So just to recap, we looked what we have and we decided what to do with it. So we do want to make our tabletop a little bit more bigger, not just the 7 basic squares. Oh, that reminds me of one thing that I wanted to show before. Maybe some of you don't even have the 7 squares or hexagons. Okay, so, and this is like, decide what you want to do with it, and then here in number 3, determine what else you need. So just assume that you don't have yeah, here's a good example that I personally ran into when I prepared for this session. This is our week 3 and when I was prototyping, I repurposed the echo to do the week 3. Okay, so something like that you probably don't want in your sampler. So determine what else you need. Here would mean just remake it. Okay, you have all the materials, you have the information. Just go online. Everything will be on our turtleloom.com blog site. I can't say forever, but for as long as people let us. So you can always go back and make another week 3 or whatever else you need, hexagon or square to supplement. So this is like determine what else you need and make it. Okay, so at this point we have a complete set of 7 right here, and we'll take a look at the squares and just lay it out and put it all together. Putting it all together has multiple steps. So here for our squares, this is what we want to do. We want to use the 7 squares that are embroidered and then frame them with other squares. I have a stack, and I had these for a couple of years now. This is Yarn Bee. It's a baby yarn, but years ago I really just liked all those colors, and they had them like in orange and pink and turquoise and purple, and then they had this variegated, and I had enough of those, so I will use them right now. There were also several people online that said, well, I like to make them, and I'm collecting stacks of squares, but I don't know what to do with it. Hey, here's your opportunity to do something with it. So you will need 34 of those. So if you have like 34 that match or don't match, you could make this sampler table topper. And what I want to do better than for the hexagons, oh, here's one more thing. A few weeks ago I said you need 30 hexagons or 34 squares plus 1. Well, if you wonder why I said plus 1, I will tell you right now. Here's our buttonhole, right? And I want you to make plus 1 to put it under the buttonhole one, like this, so that on your table topper you have a secret little pocket. All right, so this is what the plus 1 is for, and this is for the hexagon, and for the square the same thing. All right, so before I forget again, I thought I mentioned it here. The plus 1 that I mentioned a few weeks ago, and it will also be in our worksheet this week, is for the buttonhole, so that you can make a secret little pocket in your table topper. Okay, put in a little message or maybe a candy or something like that, and have extra fun with it. All right, so this was the plus 1. Now let's get back to laying out our design. This is what we want to do. Here are our supporting squares. Let's put them over here, because I just took a little break and I did get one of the felts that I forgot before. So this is pretty much, I call it design felt. It's a plain felt. I like it for my design work. I usually have like 4 or 5 going at the same time, because there's always more than one design project going on. What I like about felt, you can use a towel too. A bath towel will be big enough for this project. But what I like about the felt is that it sticks just enough for the motifs to not run around. Okay, but I can move them easily. Okay, with a towel this might be very similar, but not as perfect. That this is nice and flat too. And then I just show you quickly what we're doing here. Once we're done, you know, this is like it's dinner time. Okay, and I just fold it up and roll it up, and it's taken care of, and I can put it away until next time when I need it. Okay. We have one lady on Ravelry, and she has the luxury that she can use her dinner table for her projects, but not everybody can. So for the rest of us, we can use a towel or this type of design felt. Okay, so here's what we want to accomplish. Let's grab our let me see if I can put this over here. Yeah, at least for the beginning. So in this case, I think I want to have Oh, no, let's do the secret message in the center right here. So this will be our secret message um, that we will double. There we go. So this is the where you will have two, and you just sew them together when you put them when you join the squares. Okay, and now let's just randomly put some squares around it. And I'm not really going right now by design. You know, to get started, just get started somewhere, okay? So this is here the center row with 3 motifs in a row, and then there are 2 rows of just woven, not yellow with yellow. Let's do this. Here we go. Just with woven squares, okay? And then another one up here. And you see how quickly I lay them out. I just make sure that it's not the same colors matching, but even that would not be a big problem. So like this. Okay, so now we have the center, and now we can add those 2 up here. Let's put this one up here, and maybe the letter, which could be your initial, and then we put the other 2 down here. Can we still see this? Yes. Okay, and then we just fill in like 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, maybe an orange one, and then we have 1 row of final squares, something like this right here. Let's put this aside, and 1 row down here. Okay, this is a little bit too big to make it all into. Let's see if I can move this a little bit. So again, this is, can we zoom out 1, please? Thank you. And so this is, you can just barely see it here. Once these things are connected, you can see here there's a big gap in between. So once they are connected, it will not be that huge. But you see already how what your tabletop will look like. And you can be creative. You can, for example, add a few more corners. Let me see. Yeah, this will be good. Something like this. Okay, so to make it a little bit 4 additional squares would give it a little bit more, and then you could go. Let me just do this right now. In this design, you could go ahead if you have more squares, and I'll show you that now. You could, for example, add additional squares that you have made right here. Okay, so anything you have, you might want to add that like this, and then you can go and say, okay, there's this 2 yellow up here, not enough yellow down here, so you can change things around until you absolutely totally like it. Let me just make, I'm just reusing this right now here from whatever midterm you have to fill in that corner here at the top. So this would also, for example, if you do it like this, and then you could crochet a border around it, that would make a small car a car seat blanket for a little baby or something like that. All right, so be creative, and there are so many options that you have. You have seen it from the very tiny little one, which is perfectly fine, where you just put the 7 hexagons or squares together, to, you know, here you have a complete car seat blanket. Okay, use as many extra motifs as you have or wish. And for example, you could also, if I don't have them as squares right now, but if you have the week 4 in different sizes, go ahead and add them. Okay, here's the sheep, another sheep. So add as much as you want. Okay, and this is where you make it yours. So this is you make it your heirloom. All right. So that much about the layout. Move things around until you like what you see, and then we start thinking about joining. But for now, and I'll show you here this with a towel or felting. This is the part that I like so much. Okay, no matter when you run out of time, you just roll it up and put it away until you can work on it again. And that's exactly what we do right now. All right, joining. Joining is, I think there's a lot of myth around joining. Let me just move this in from here. And I hope that with this project we can overcome a little bit of the, I don't want to call it fear because that's too strong, like the fear of joining, but it's a lot of people say it's like, oh, I don't join, I can't do it, I've never done it. I really, really, really would like to encourage you to just do it. And maybe the very small design is a perfect starting ground to get to try it out and get going. But before you tackle your big project, I do want you to sample. Okay, and what I will do here in this session is I will show you a few options that you have, and then I want you to go and sample. All right, let's talk about joining. Can we please zoom in? Thank you. All right, this is a picture that Diane posted on Facebook recently. Diane is new to pin loom weaving, but she has not learned the fear of joining, so she just tackled it. And you know, of course, it takes some time to try it out, but look at her results. I think that's perfect. And she posted it and said, you know, is this right? You know, should I do it any other way? What do I have to do differently? And my recommendation is don't do anything differently, just do more of it. Diane followed the joining instructions. You can almost call them ancient at this point, because these are some of the simplest joining methods that you can do. This is the double cast over. All right, so it's pretty much, this is the right side, but you can see here she's using a contrasting color, but here she's using the same color. And do you see how nicely this blends in as if it would just continue the weaving? I think she did a fantastic job, and she is new to pin loom weaving. If Diane can do it, I think the rest of us can do too. All right, but I do want to show you a few, or talk about a few options. So we can do hand stitching, and let me just see. Yeah, I will show you the hand stitching in a little while here. But I also want to show you a few examples that you can machine stitch, or if you like to crochet, I want to show you a few ideas for crocheting. Again, you don't have to do them all. I'm showing them here, and these are very basics. All right, I want you to go sample. Make a few extra hexagons or a few extra squares. Like here, I have like 3 or 4 extra squares to play with, and try different things before you tackle your project. Okay. Today I will show you just a very simple way to hand stitch the squares and hexagons together, but for you know, so that you have at least an idea, I want to show you the other methods just as ideas. So here, let me see if I can show you this. Yeah, okay. So these are a few machine stitching ideas, okay? I used a black thread on white to show you the difference, because with some of those stitches, if you use matching threads, you won't even see it, okay? Which, of course, would defeat the purpose of this video. So here in this first one, I overlapped the squares slightly. So let me just show you this here. So if these are our two squares, I just overlap them slightly. You see that? And then I sewed with the largest straight setting just down, okay? So you still see the scallops peeking out here, and it's a little bit harder to get it good looking on both sides. So I would not recommend this method, but I want to show you that, okay, so that you know. Next, I used the largest setting of zigzag, and I overlapped them just slightly, so not too much, but just slightly, a little bit like this. So see here at the bottom, so just slightly overlap and then zigzag through both of them. So just have the scallops overlap and then zigzag with the largest stitch, and this is actually pretty good on both sides. Just imagine that the black thread would be this natural color and you can barely see it, okay? I did not like it too much because you still see the scallops a little bit uneven here with the weaving, okay? The good thing here is that it's very flat, okay? If I hold it up like this, there's nothing sticking up, all right? Lastly, what I did is I put two squares together and then sewed along the edge here, again with the largest straight stitch. And then when you fold it open, it's a beautiful, beautiful seam. The disadvantage here is that you actually have, it's not flat, okay? I'll turn this slowly. I turn this slowly, you see it's not completely flat. It does look good on the right side though, okay? So these are just a few options for machine sewing. Personally not my preference, but it's your choice. I'm showing you this again to encourage you to sample, okay? Try it out and form your own opinion. So that is a machine for the squares. The same here for the hexagons. I skipped the two parts with the thick borders because I think that's pretty much out, and just chose the one that is most likely the best one. It's even hard to see here on the screen. This is the zigzag stitch in the largest zigzag stitch, slightly overlapping. It attaches very nicely, is strong, and it looks good on both sides, okay? So I would consider the zigzag stitch an option, but you know, you are the judge. If you like to crochet, here are a few crochet suggestions. Let me show you. For my samples, I have tried 3 different yarns. So there's the Caron Simply Soft, and then I used sock yarn, and I used our famous Lion Brand Bonbon, the cotton, and I used it in black because this will make a nice contrast. All right, so let me show you here what this looks like. Oh, I forgot one. I don't know where I have it right now. I just see it here on my sample. Move this out so that we have a better contrast. You see here, this is actually a crochet thread. Okay, so I started with crochet thread right here, and the benefit of that is that it's thin enough that it doesn't lie up, that is not, you know, lying up very thick. It's very thin. It will do the job. So you could crochet around your squares and then sew them together, or with some chains, just go around. Benefit is you get a very fine border and everything will lie flat. So I actually like that a lot. Here is the cotton, the black cotton. Okay, it's a little bit thicker, but it gives it a nice contrast. You will get a little bit of the stained glass effect between your squares or your motifs. So I definitely consider that an option. If you have border squares or hexagons that are in a solid color, you might want to think of using a variegated yarn. I just for demonstration purposes here, I use this variegated sock yarn, which will give you something like this as a border. And you see here, solid color. You get a little bit extra cute effect if you crochet around it with a variegated yarn. Just ideas, okay? So last not least, I have used the Caron Simply Soft to crochet two squares together at the same time, so that you can skip the sewing part. So here are 3 suggestions on crocheting first and then sewing together, but you can of course also crochet together right away. This part here is I made a slip stitch into one square and then the other one. And I'm using all the scallops, okay? I forgot to mention here, 1 single crochet into each of the scallops will give you a border like that, and it will look very neat and clean, okay? Here it's a slip stitch into that one, slip stitch into that one, going back and forth, okay? It looks interesting, but you get definitely, it's not flat, okay? It stands up a little bit and it looks a little bit puffy. If you like it, that's fine. It's not my favorite, but it definitely, if you stretch it out a little bit over and when you block it later on, it actually looks pretty neat, okay? Here is another one where you put 2 motifs together and crochet them together. The first half here is single crochet, and then I switched to slip stitch only. And you see, let me just put this apart here. Hope you can see this. So the single crochet makes definitely a ridge, but it looks pretty, and it looks pretty clean. The slip stitch makes an interesting pattern, actually. Let me see if I can show, maybe if I turn this around. The slip stitch makes an interesting pattern. It's flatter in general, but it also, here you see the advancement of the stitches, and then those little thingies down here that look like a back stitch, okay? It will be better visible probably when you see the photos in the worksheet. So this will become interesting later on. I'll show you why. So it's nice and flat. It looks good on both sides. If you turn it over, this is the slip stitch and this is the single crochet stitch. So the slip stitch is nice and thin. You can use a contrasting color or the same color. So there's definitely something to play with. Okay, so my favorite out of the crocheting 2 motifs together at the same time would be the slip stitch, okay, just because it's flat and it looks pretty decent. All right, you can do the same thing here on the with the hexagons, and you can see here, where do I start? So here there's the red crochet thread, and you see it's very delicate and non-invasive, so that's an interesting option. And then here is where we have the sock yarn, which goes well, blends in well if you have solid color and want it to be a little bit more playful. Then here is the black cotton, and this can be, and you know, a crochet thread as well. Here it's more the color that matters, because it will give it the stained glass effect. Okay, and then very quickly, here is the I need to see how I need to hold this. Oh, here we go. Okay, so here is the holding two hexagons together and crocheting them together. So this part is the slip stitch part, and this part is the single crochet. And if you hold it apart, you can see the single crochet builds a ridge, but the slip stitch makes this very interesting pattern that shows the advancing V's, and then something that looks a little bit like back stitch here. Here's another one where's the whole side. On the hexagon you have two different sides to work with, but I think it looks, the slip stitch here again is my favorite on both sides. And here's the other side, so you can actually choose which side you want to have up. They both look very decent. So if you rather crochet than stitch, you have options. Okay, so oh yeah, by the way, I just this was of course a little teaser here. My yarn doily is another one of my mother's creations. This is a little bit more worn out, but I put it, I wanted to show this to you here because now you can actually say, oh yeah, I know those stitches. Okay, so there are running stitches right here. There's the buttonhole stitch, and she actually used the buttonhole stitch for this part of the flowers. There are straight stitches here in the center, and satin stitches. Let me just hold this up so that you can see this a little bit more. There's a buttonhole out here, and then straight stitches right here. The leaves are straight stitches as well, and then the center is little satin stitch. Okay, border with buttonhole. So now you can actually go and make this yeah, not a hobby, but you know, if you go to places and you see something with hand embroidery, see if you can recognize the stitches. It's actually a pretty fun activity to do. All right, but let's get back to joining. I want to talk about joining by hand and what I'm showing you is a very simple method. So this is the no fuss method. Just need to get my, forgot to get my needle ready here. All right, so okay, so with our hexagons, and I'm just doing a quick and dirty because I want to show you one more thing later on. Now actually, let me tell you about this now, where this is going. So I will show you today a very simple way to just join the motifs, join the squares or join the hexagons. If you are not completely satisfied, you have two options. One option is go look for other joining methods. There are a lot of really interesting joining methods, particularly for squares online, and I plan on providing a short list of the more popular versions. For the hexagons, so this will be for the squares. For the hexagons, I have done over 100 projects by now, and they are all whip stitched. I still cannot get myself to coming up with something more fancy, but I think it's not needed. It just works. Okay, so with the squares, because you have the scalloped edges, you have to be a little bit more creative, or you can be more creative, as you have seen with Diana's sample. She just did it and she's done, and you know, this is like, okay, next. So today we will just do a very simple connection. And if you don't like it, either go look for another joining method, or, and this is the teaser of the day, and I should have used different yarns. I will do that for my samples. Now that you are masters of embroidery and you are going to make a crazy quilt, crazy quilts by nature or by definition are known because they use embroidery stitches, okay? And here it's less visible than I was hoping. What I'm showing you here, if you don't like your joints, embroider over them, okay? You already know the running stitch that you can run aside. You can cover the joints with cross stitch, and there's one more stitch that I want to show you quickly today, which is called the feather stitch. All right, so you also may have some squares that you like, some that you don't. For the ones that you don't, just you know, embroider over it. So very quickly here, let's start with the hexagons. I just want to very quickly join 2 hexagons, and you can find hexagon joining information on our YouTube channel for the turtle looms. So I'm not putting too much effort into it at this point. So we want to join this one with this one here. Actually, let me join the other side. So we'll just join this one. Okay. What you will see in the other videos is that there are 2 types of stitches. So one where the thread goes all around here, and then on those other 4, that's on 2 sides, right here and here. And on the other sides, you just have something, I call them little elbows. So they're just little bows that go halfway around. I'll call them elbows. So for today, we will just join quickly the arches where the thread goes all around. And you can see here when I line them up like this, those arches line up very quickly. And all you need to do is just whip stitch through them, through those little arches. So if you can, I hope you can see this. So this is not a joining video. That's why I'm going really quickly through this. So just join up those arches right here and just go whip stitch through them. That's all there is to it. Okay, and I can show you here the joins on the right side. It looks like this, and it's pretty smooth going. All right, so that is all there is to it. We're joining here, and then let's take a look at. Oh, here we go. For the squares, because we have. Let me put this on here. I want to see if I can make this a little bit more visible. For the squares, because we have those scallops here, we have a tiny little bit thinking to do, but I show you the key trick to it. Let's see. So this is where we start. So this is actually, can we zoom in, please? Thank you. All right. So you see all those little scallops here, and I have laid out. Let me show you this right here. Just grabbing my zoom loom here. So this is how it comes off the loom. Okay, so here's the starting point right here, and then we wind and weave, and then this is where we come out here. Okay, so what I'm wanting to point out here is direction matters. Okay, and then the second one, we do the same thing. Starting thread here, ending thread is right here, and the focus is on how they match. Now I've used the contrasting dark cardboard here because you can see, one thing I want to show you here is you can see that here this corner looks a little bit different than the other scallops. It's a little bit smaller, okay? And then here in this corner we don't really have anything sticking out. It's more going flat, okay? So if you line them up here as they come off the loom, starting thread here and the ending thread here, then watch what happens to the scallops here and here when I slide them together. See how they come together like teeth? And that is what we want to do. All right, so this is how you want to put them together. All right, and another thing is, watch this little dinky here, okay, this little corner right here. That comes first. You know, you can try to remember little people first, so that one comes first. If you move it over like this, see the teeth still go together here along, but if you don't start with the little dinky, your squares will be off. So little dinky comes first, and then just match them together so that the teeth meet. And it's actually interesting because little teeth, if the little dinky comes out the first here, the little dinky from the bottom square will come first on the other side. Okay, so if you are not sure, look at both of the little dinkies on the bottom and the top square and make sure that they come first in line, and you will be fine. All right, so very quickly, and I will just use the simple overhand, but what I want to show you here, oh, should do this with my right hand. So get started and make sure that the little dinky is first in line. And then I want to show you, let me show it this way. That's the joy of being left-handed. You have to translate everything on the fly. I have them lined up now as they came off the table. Let me show you that one more time. So off the table, slide them together so that the teeth meet. The little dinkies are out, and then you can hold them like this and slide them up, okay? And this way they are lined up properly. And I'm not sure if you can see, yeah, I think you can see this, that they are, you know, the teeth and the back are off where the teeth in the front are. So this is like teeth back, teeth front, teeth back, teeth front, teeth back, teeth front, all the way over. And this will be important when you join them, okay? So all you need, or all I need to do right now is I go through the second scallop on the front and the first on the back. Not sure if you can see this. Let's just do this here. Okay. And now I do the first on the front and the second scallop in the back. Second scallop in the front, first in the back. First in the front, second in the back. Okay, and so I'm just going, that's all I'm doing here. And I'm whip stitching, which is the simplest. What you could do to make it the overhand stitch is do every stitch twice. So instead of advancing, you would do the same stitch again. Okay. I will just proceed here. So right now I'm doing the first stitch on the front row, the second scallop on the back row. Second on the front row, first on the back. first on the front, second on the back, second on the back, first on the front, first on the back, first on the back, second. Okay, sorry. Think, Gabi. First on the front row, second on the back row, second on the front, first on the back. So it's pretty much just alternating until you get to the very end. Sorry, I wasn't watching the camera, so I'm not sure if I wiggled out of the zoom. But here we are. So, and this is really just whip stitching. This is not the best, but this is a very quick method. If you are not very patient, this will do the job, okay? So let's take a look. It's not the prettiest, but here you go. I think it's not ugly either. All right, so let me hold this up. You can see here how the teeth get together. And I wanted to do this in lifetime so that you can see that it's really not as painful as as you might think. All right, so I forgot to mention, pull the thread that you use tight. Okay, the teeth of the scallops will pull together. So if the sewing thread is tight, the teeth will just pull together even better. Okay, that's all there is to it. I hope that this little demonstration shows you how easy it actually is. If you have questions, ask, but other than that, make a few squares, or if you have a few squares floating around, please go ahead and just you know, sample it, try it out. All right, let's just say you don't like this. I actually do, but you may say you don't like it. Let me see if I can we zoom out, please? Thank you. I will switch to a different yarn. Yeah, this will show a little bit better here. If you don't like this join, I think you should, but if you don't, let me show you a very typical crazy quilt method. Grab some yarn, and we're working off the loom now, of course. Our slip knot method still works, and we can just go anywhere. What I want to show you first here is a running stitch. Remember that from our very first lesson? So just start anywhere. Let the slip knot stop you here. And we do that later on. We will release the slip knot and weave in the ends so that we have a nice backing. But let's do just a few running stitches here for decorative purposes. And right now I'm just doing a 2 over and 2 under. And I hope somebody says, oh yes, this was our very first lesson. And that's right. So here we go. So, and it does not cover the edge, but it breaks it up a little bit, okay? And that's the purpose of this one. So add some running stitches, okay? Or you can say, I really don't like this, I want this to go away, in which case you can do a cross stitch over it. Let's just quickly do a few cross stitches. All right, start anywhere on one side. Actually, let me start on the other side because that would make it the proper direction. Doesn't really matter, but I want to make it proper. So come out on the left square somewhere, okay? And then you just make the first diagonal straight stitch row all the way down as long as you want to go. and I'm making it over here. What I'm doing here is I'm going over the seam and making them really big, so about 3 stitches. You can make two stitches. I'm making 3 stitches here right now, so I have 3 threads in between. Okay, so let's do one more right here. That will bring us to the end. And then we go over to the left and back all the way up. I'm not explaining the stitches right now because this is the cross stitch. You know that by now. Isn't that wonderful that you now know all those stitches? So, you know, whether I say running stitch or cross stitch, you know it already. I think that's pretty cool. All right. So here is one option. If you don't like your seams on your table topper, or if you don't like certain sections of your seam, you can cover them with very pretty cross stitch. All right. So I want to show you one last thing. Let me just cut this off here. There is one stitch that is, well, some books actually refer to it as the crazy quilt or crazy stitch. The official name is feather stitch, and I just took like, yeah, any length will be fine, and we'll make our slip knot here again for later. But let me quickly show you this the stitch in my handy dandy book right here. So this is the feather stitch, and this is what it looks like. Okay, and you can already see this. If you have something like this run along your seam, it will cover it up very prettily. Okay, the good thing is that you only need to work in one direction, so not like the cross stitch. Oh, I have it upside down, that's why. So not like the cross stitch where you have to go back and forth. The feather stitch is just working in one direction, and I'll show you another benefit in a little while. So you make those loops here, and then you just keep on looping, and you loop your way all the way down. Okay, let's take a look at that in real life. So we start with our thread on any point on the left side or the left square, and just pull it through enough so that the loop will stop it. Okay, let me get this out of the way so that we have a nice contrast here. And just, okay, I need to just cleaning up a little bit so that it's more visible here. So this way we can concentrate on our work. A nice thing with the feather stitch is that you can have your work flat on the table while you're working it. So there's no going up and down and up and down. You can, if you want, work on a flat surface. The benefit of that is, since you're not working on the embroidery loom anymore, it might help a little bit with the tension. Okay, so let's take a look how it works. So we come out on anywhere to the left of the seam, and then we go over to the right side of the seam. Actually, can we zoom in, please? Thank you. All right, I hope you can see this. So just go across the seam anywhere horizontally. So you can just, I'm making pretty big here. This is like over 2 threads on the left and then 2 threads on the right, and I go down here, but then I come up in the middle. So I come up, I'm not sure if you can see this here, let me hold this up. I come up, so I start here on the left, go over to the right, and then I come up here in the middle, right on the seam. Okay, so, and then we pull this through, and we pull it. Make sure that you have a loop. You now know by now how to work the loop right here. Okay, make sure that you come up over on the outside of the loop, and then you pull it in. Okay, so here is your first feather stitch. All right, and now we go to the left, and the same height as where you just came out, but to the left, and then you advance a few stitches down the center. Show you. So here's the center, a few stitches to the left, and you advance a little bit down and come up in the center. Okay, here we go. And then you just pull it until you like the looks of it. Okay, so you always come up in the center, right where your seam is, and then you go once to the left and once to the right. So again, from where you came up, horizontally go a little bit over to go down, and then advance a little bit towards you and come up in the middle again. Okay, I'll show you a few stitches here, and then pull it through until you like the looks of it. All right, we go over to the left, advance down, come up in the center, and here we go. All right, I'm hitting my my cross stitches here, but we can do the same here on our hexagons. Let me see if this will be visible. Yeah, okay. So you already see the benefits, and then the last stitch is very much like the buttonhole. You just stitch over the last loop to the back. All right, can you see this? So to secure the last loop, and that's it. I love this stitch to cover up little boo-boos because it goes so fast, and you really don't have to worry about direction, because you can take it to the right or to the left or any direction you want, and it covers up. If you don't like the seams, it covers them up beautifully. Okay, so crazy stitch right here, and I think this is actually sufficient. You would do the same thing on the hexagons. You start on the left. Just hold on. Okay, this is the one that we just joined before. So we come up on the left somewhere. Starting point is right here. Just pull in enough so that the slip knot blocks it. Okay, and then the first stitch is you go over to the right one before you advance to the center. Come up in the center, make sure that you have this little loop, and then you just pull it tight. This one is very big, but that's okay. All right, and so the next is we go to the left, advance a little bit, come out in the center. From where we came up, go a little bit to the right, advance a little bit down to the center, and come up. Next stitch is coming from the left, so you will come here, go over horizontally a little bit, and then advance down and come up in the center through the loop. Okay, and you can see that even here, this stitch is and then when you're done, you can just kind of go over the last loop like this and secure it, and you're done. All right, you can travel with this stitch. The stitch can go in circles or in swirls or what have you. You can start at any time, you can stop at any time. So it's actually a lot of fun to work with this stitch. But what I wanted to show you, not that you need it, you have seen how smooth those joints are by themselves. But if you feel like doing a little bit more embroidery, see where you can add some running stitches or try some more cross stitches or give the new feather stitch a try. Okay, so these are the tools of the trade that I want to show you today. And if we look at our, let me take this away. Can we please zoom out? Thank you. All right, let's take a final look here at our 5-step process to product. See what you have, decide what you want to do with that, determine what else you need and make it, and then put it all together. And what we just did, we had an extensive look at different joining methods, and at this point pretty much just go ahead and put things together. Okay, when you have it put all together and you consider a border, you don't have to do a border. No border is fine for both pin looms, and that's the beauty of pin looms. You don't have to finish them. Consider a simple crochet border around it, or remember, you have learned the blanket stitch. You can do the blanket stitch. I know it's probably not many people's favorite, but it's doable. Anyway, last step in our 5-step process to product, take pictures. Share them with others, and then go and enjoy your sample table topper. I think it will be well deserved whether you make a small one or a large one. I just hope that you will enjoy. All right, there's one more thing to chat about before we can close today, and this is what's next. If you enjoyed this weave and stitch along, but you don't want to stop right here, I highly suggest a few things, and I'm just showing you this right now, and I hope I get a whole bunch of oohs and ahs right here. Whenever you make anything with your pin looms, always think, can I embroider it? Whether it's a large project or a small project, can I embroider it? Add a little detail or just an accent, or embroider your initials onto it. Make it memorable, okay? Another suggestion on what's to do next, remember that we talked about illumination. Dig some history on illumination. Traditionally, I mentioned it before, a lot of the pin loom weavers, you know, it was normal for them to combine their pin loom weaving with embroidery. So there's tons of really good stuff out there. Dig through those old Lumet and Weave It booklets on illumination and see what they have. Modify a few things, explore and try out. All right. Also on our Pinterest board for this weave and stitch along, there's one section that I called inspiration, and in this section I started to collect little things that I find here and there that would be suitable for our little pin loom weaving. So take a look at that there and see if there's something that you like. Last not least, Google it or check out Pinterest. There's just gazillions of embroidery information and suggestions and projects out there. It's simply unbelievable. All right. What I'm showing you right here is something that Lynette made a few weeks ago. And Lynette posted this on Facebook, and then she said, well, this is my very first embroidery on paper. And if you are a cat lover, for sure you will just melt away seeing this picture. But even if you're not a cat lover, it just looks cute, doesn't it? So I contacted Lynette and said, hey Lynette, have you thought about embroidering that on a pin loom, square or hexagon? And she replied something to the degree, no, not ... yet. And so, as they say, the rest is history. Just a few days later, Lynette sent me this picture. And, you know, do you see how the smile increased from paper to pin loom? So Lynette transferred the design to a square that she wove. And, you know, she is using straight stitches, and I think this is the French knot, but you know, all the stitch, you're familiar with those stitches. So just a little bit of background when the reason why I'm showing this to you now with what's next. Lynette found this design on somewhere on Pinterest, okay, and so she decided to put it onto paper. But when I asked her, she said, oh, sure, let's do it. Let's put it on a pin loom square. And isn't that amazing? So the suggestion here is be inspired by things that you see. Ask yourself, can I not just can I add embroidery, but also can I do it in embroidery on my pin loom? And I think this is an excellent example for that. All right. So these are all things that you can do next. I will repeat it one more time, that we also, you know, all the videos, the worksheets, the blogs, information, it will all stay up and running. So you can always come back and try again. Oh, I just noticed that this is actually, oh, sorry for the sticker here. You probably wonder yourself, okay, ask yourself, why is she putting up this right now? I promised you in the very early beginning when we started, I want to do a giveaway. What you see here are 3 giveaways: a zoom loom, a turtle loom, and a treasure bag with the Lion brand bonbons. Thank you very much to the Schacht company, who is sponsoring our giveaway with a zoom loom. The way it will work, and this will be all on the website, this is for domestic US only. The way it will work, I will have 2 tasks, 2 chances to win. We'll talk about that in a little while. And then if your name is drawn, I'll pass it on to Schacht, and Schacht will send you directly the zoom loom. So you cannot have this one. This is mine and I want to keep it, but you will get one exactly like this. So thank you again, Schacht company. I thought this was a really very generous thing to do. I will throw in a turtle loom, and you can win a turtle loom of your choice. I do understand that some of you already have this loom, so you can choose a turtle loom that you don't have yet, including the new one. And last not least, before I started this Weave and Stitch Along, I went to Joann Fabrics and got one of each of the bonbons. And I have used a lot, but there's still a lot left. So if you are interested, you can win whatever is left. So this is like a gallon bag, and most of them are not even opened. I really enjoyed working with those bonbons a lot. There's such a great variety. They work just great. They are fun to work with. The results are stunning. So I'm really happy that I found those bonbons, and they did a great job. I will highly recommend them for embroidery on pin loops. So these are the 3 prizes that you can win. One thing I want to say, if you already have, um, you have the zoo loom, you have the turtle loom, and you have this, I cannot do any substitutes. So if your name is drawn, but you don't want any of those 3 things, you may say no thank you and pass it on to the next person in the drawing. All right. So anyway, there's more information on it in the worksheet and on the blog. I'm not just giving that away, or I need to gather some names somehow, and you have 2 opportunities to win. The first one is very straightforward, which is all you need to do is work on your final project and post a picture either on Facebook or on Ravelry about your final project. All right? And then I'll pick it up from there. All the names will get into the database, and then we do a random drawing from there. You will have a second opportunity to win. And this ties back into what's next. I think at this point that you have the tools to explore on your own. And I would like to encourage you to give that a try. So what I want you to do is go and find a stitch that we have not officially learned in this Weave and Stitch Along and try it out on a hexagon or on a square. You don't have to be creative or anything, just try it out. Take a picture, post it, and let us know the name of the stitch and what you think about it. Okay, you can use the internet. Every week we had the link to the DMC stitch guide. There are several stitches that we have not covered. You can pick any one from there. By the way, if there are multiple people that have the same stitch, no problem. I want the stitch to be new to you, not new to the group. So check out the DMC stitch guide. Google it. There are tons of stitches out there. Take a look at the book. There's like 200 stitches right here. Go to the library. Stitch variations are okay. For example, here is the feather stitch that we did today. There's also a closed feather, a double feather, a chained feather. So if you want to try any of those variations, go ahead. All right. If you have any questions about that, come and ask. The other thing is that I want to keep the Weave and Stitch Along going for 2 weeks from today. So this is posting week 8. We are going 2 weeks out before we close it up to give you enough time to finish your project. Okay, so I think this will bring us out to, I think it's August the 5th of this year. If you watch the recording, in a few years you might have missed it, but don't worry about it. The really good stuff is still out here. So we keep this Weave and Stitch Along open for another 2 weeks, and then the drawing will be the Monday in 2 weeks from week 8. I think it's August the 5th, but I would need to confirm that. So at that point, we will do a random drawing of 3 names, and then so that you can win the Zoom Loom. Again, this is domestic US only, a turtle loom of your choice, or this really scrumptious goodie bag of Lion Brand bonbons. All right, I think we did it. Wow, this was a lot. I totally get it. I hope you enjoyed not just today's session, but all 8 of them. I hope you will not have too much of a withdrawal symptom, because there will not be a week 9. We'll make it gradual, so finish your project And then I hope that you have enough tools to take it from there. Also, continue to chat about embroidery, both on Facebook and Ravelry and on Turtle Looms and where have you. Um, I hope that from now on, embroidery will be a, a standard addition to your weaving activities. Thank you very much for all your time, all the laughters, all the beautiful ideas and projects that you produced over the last 2 months. I enjoyed it a lot. I learned at least as much as you did, believe me, and I hope we will stay in touch. Thank you very much, and auf Wiedersehen.